Let's take a look on the mechanical installation of the Hydronic Aqua System. The Hydronic S3 heater must not be installed inside any living or sleeping area, nor where combustion byproducts might be drawn into such areas. Some possible installation locations are under the floor of the vehicle, in the engine compartment, or in a compartment completely sealed from an occupied area. It should be mounted below minimum coolant level of the system and within the accepted angle position shown here on the right, using the mounting bracket provided. Refer to the heater technical description manual for full installation instructions. Here you can see the main heater connections, with the coolant in and out connectors on top, and there are arrows marked close to it to know which is which. They are available both as straight and angled coolant connectors. The exhaust, fuel, and combustion air intake connections are on the bottom of the heater as shown. There are requirements for the heater combustion air intake and exhaust. The intake must be far from the exhaust, not in the direction of travel, and far from areas of road spray, water, and snow, with the tip tilted 15 degrees down. It should be routed slightly downward or have a drain hole at the lowest point. It must be securely fixed at every 50 cm or 20 inches, with no more than 10 cm or 4 inches past the last fastener. The exhaust requirements are the same of the intake, with some additional points. The end of it should be far from the heater intake and other vehicle air systems. It must not be routed through the interior of the vehicle, and its end must be routed to open air, preferably the back of the vehicle, and with sufficient clearance from heat-sensitive parts. There are minimum and maximum lengths for the intake and exhaust, as shown in the image. In case your application requires a longer exhaust, contact our technical support team and we can guide you on how to properly do it, which isn't by simply extending it. The fuel metering pump delivery side must be pointed upward, at an angle preferably between 15 and 35 degrees. Notice that the electrical connection is on the intake side. The fuel is taken with a pickup pipe either from the main vehicle fuel tank or from a separate auxiliary tank. It should not reach the bottom of the tank to prevent from draining it completely. The pump should be installed away from hot components. There are also requirements that must be followed with regards to the height position, the top and bottom of the fuel tank, and to the heater, as shown on the right. More information is available on the installation manual. Try to lay the fuel lines in a continuous rise from the fuel pump to the heater, with no sharp bends or kinks. Cut the lines at right angles and burr free with a sharp blade, since no crushing is allowed. Fix fuel lines every 50 cm, so 20 inches, or less to avoid damages and vibration. Keep fuel lines away from hot components, such as exhaust, and not going through the interior of the vehicle. Always use butt joints to prevent large bubble formation. Follow maximum length requirements as shown here, using 4x1 fuel lines, meaning 4 mm of external diameter and 1 mm of wall thickness, which leads to an internal diameter of 2 mm. The coolant pump is not self-priming, and the system must be primed before turning on the pump. So pull the fuse until the system is primed, since running it empty will quickly damage it. The inlet side must always be completely filled with coolant while locating the pump below the minimum coolant level, but not at the lowest point of the coolant circuit, to avoid particle deposition. The in and out connections are shown on the image, as well as acceptable mounting angle positions. It is possible to use the mounting bracket provided to mount the pump to the heater. The coolant reservoir must be installed as shown, with overflow port upward and at the highest point in the coolant system. Connect a hose to overflow port and route to a safe location, making sure it is always unobstructed and vented to the atmosphere. Both the heating element and the thermostatic switch must always be submerged in coolant for proper operation and to avoid damages. Use thread sealant on all NPT connections, but not excessively to avoid coolant contamination. Barb fittings are provided for 3/4 inch inner diameter coolant lines, but other sizes may be used as required. Check the coolant level in the reservoir frequently and top up as required. Consult System Installer for the minimum and maximum cold fuel levels. Note that the coolant inlet and outlet ports are interchangeable. The recommended fluid for use is a mixture of commercially available deionized water and antifreeze, glycol, at 60:40 ratio. For colder temperatures, this mixture can be adjusted, but this may affect the flow rate of coolant within the system. Even if freezing is not expected, the coolant must always contain a minimum of 10% glycol as corrosion protection. Make sure the glycol selected is safe for use with all system components, such as the ones listed here, and rated for use at elevated temperatures seen in the heating system. Do not mix different types of glycol. Lay and fix the parts of the coolant system as not to pose temperature risk to people, animals, or temperature-sensitive material. Please note that coolant will reach high temperatures that can cause injuries, scalding, and burns. Wait for the coolant to cool down before working on the coolant circuit and use appropriate PPE. With increased temperature, coolant will expand and may spill through the overflow drain. If the overflow is blocked, it may spurt from the fuel port when open. Pay attention to the coolant flow direction on each component and on the system. Fill the heater and hoses with coolant before connecting them to the coolant circuit. Lay and fix the hoses securely at every 20 cm or 8 inches to prevent vibration damage, with no kinks, far from vehicle hot parts and sharp edges, and protected from chafing and extreme temperatures. Before first use or after any maintenance, fill the system with coolant and purge the system of air bubbles following manual instructions. Check the coolant level in the reservoir frequently and top up as required. Replace the coolant following fluid manufacturer recommendations. Keep system full even when placed in storage. This image shows the recommended coolant circuit layout. It is recommended for the coolant pump to be the first component downstream of the reservoir, followed by the Hydronic S3 heater. Other circuits can be used as per application needs, but may require more powerful or additional coolant pump and relays. Low flow rates will result in a decrease in maximum heater performance, with too low flow rates causing the heater to overheat and generate faults. There are 2 units of the Silencio 2 air heat exchangers included in the kit. Make sure the safety grills, which are included on the product, are installed in the intake and outflow sides to avoid injuries from the fan or burns from the heat exchanger. The rear of the units must have access to an air return to draw air to be heated. Install the units at floor level to draw in cooler air, which is heavier, and promote natural convection and a more even heat distribution. The coolant outward port must always be on top, with allowed mounting positions shown on these images. The water heat exchanger can be mounted in any orientation. It must be fixed securely to prevent movement and acceptable stress on the coolant lines. Use thread sealant on all NPT connections, but not excessively to avoid coolant contamination. Barb fittings are provided for 3/4 inch inner diameter coolant lines, but other sizes may be used as required. Pay attention to the water and coolant inlet and outlet port locations as shown in this image. The thermostatic mixing valve has specific connections for the cold water inlet, hot water inlet, and mixed water outlet that cannot be mixed. On the hot water circuit leading to the thermostatic mixing valve, high temperatures up to 85 Celsius or 185 Fahrenheit for the water and components are expected in normal operation. Water temperatures above 52 Celsius or 125 Fahrenheit can cause severe burns and scalding. The valve can be installed in any orientation. Adjust and lock the thermostatic valve to ensure water temperature at faucets is always less than 50 degrees Celsius or 122 Fahrenheit. No shutoff can be installed between the cold water line and the cold water inlet to the thermostatic mixing valve. Half NPT fittings are provided for 3/4 inch inner diameter water hoses, but other sizes may be used as required. This image is only an application example of what the domestic water system could look like, but it's up to the user or installer to design it properly. However, the use of the thermostatic mixing valve is mandatory to reduce temperature on the faucets. Only potable water is to be heated, and plumbing material must be approved for this use. User must keep the sanitization. The domestic water supply system is not within the scope of supply of the Hydronic Aqua System. The room temperature sensor may be installed either with a wire in front of the wall or behind it, as shown in this image. Do make sure that the sensor head is not in contact with the mounting surface. It must not be installed near a hot air outlet, a heat exchanger, or in the path of blowing warm air. Install it where it's protected from drafts, direct sunlight, and incidental contact. The high altitude module can be located anywhere and in any installation angle that is exposed to the atmospheric pressure and protected from the elements. For example, a vented compartment inside the vehicle. Secure it with clips or cable ties to prevent any movement or vibration damage. Do not expose to water or moisture. Thanks for watching, and until next time.